Warning: disturbing content, viewer discretion is advised. Serious, all people have read it. What is the most weird, creepy and unexplainable things that have happened between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m.? Not the worst, but definitely the straight up most what moment I've had at those hours. I was walking home from work at a bar near an area not at unfamiliar to gay male prostitutes. This guy comes up from across the street. He walks up to me and asks me if he can ask me a favor. He asks, "I'm leaving tomorrow morning, your feet look really nice, can I pay you to touch them?" Now, I'm wearing black tights and a skirt and full shoes, so I'm just confused even more. He just kept asking and pleading that he was leaving and really wanted to touch some feet. But for $20, yet, he was well dressed brand streetwear. Just so fucking creepy and gross. I just eventually told him, "I'm sorry, you seem really nice, but I don't do things like that with strangers, I'm sorry." So glad he wasn't violent, because that's what I'm used to. It was just really strange, that he was so pleasant and formal. He told me to have a good night. Like, thanks, friendly neighborhood pervert. I live out in a rural area. There used to be train tracks everywhere, and you still sometimes find the bridges for them over various creeks and rivers around town, but never any rail. My parents and other older family members always told me they took them up in the early 90s. I'm a heavy sleeper. Despite these things, every once in a while I wake up because I swear I hear a train blaring its horn and the distant low rattling of one passing over tracks. It usually lasts for about 10 minutes, but one time I swear it kept going for 20. I share a room with my mom because we only have 2 bedrooms, and one night I woke her up when it happened and asked her what it was. She got a perplexed look on her face and listened and eventually just said, "I don't know." She heard the noise too, but she swears there aren't any functioning railroads around us for miles. You ask anybody else in our town, and they'll tell you the same. Both of my parents were born and raised here, if not all then most of their lives, so they're familiar with the territory. Neither of us can ever tell what direction it's coming from because it kind of echoes around a little. It's not super creepy, but it's definitely weird and unexplainable. It happens once maybe every couple of months. We're not particularly close with the neighbors since we're kind of spread out and one of them is a jerk, but I keep meaning to ask a friend that lives way down the road in the direction it sometimes sounds like it might be coming from if he's ever heard it. My grandparents' home was built in the 1800s, and the previous owner killed himself by drinking lye back in the 1930s. My grandmother seemed to think he was still around and mentioned cryptically once she always kept her bedroom door closed at night to prevent visitors. One summer, I was about 11 and spent 2 weeks at their house, sleeping in an unused room upstairs. One morning, about 5 a.m. I heard the door between the downstairs and upstairs creak open, and someone starts to walk slowly and laboriously up the stairs, breathing heavily and pausing on every step. This wasn't so strange, because my grandparents and father were also staying in the house, but the more I got to listening, it didn't sound like any of them. I lay in bed in a cold panic listening to whatever it made its slow, anguished way to the top. Finally I heard it reach the top step, and I forced myself to turn my head and look at the top of the stairs. Not surprisingly, no one was there. I must have fainted at this point, for I remember nothing else. I refused to sleep in the room again. Once I got home, I told my mother what had happened, and she told me that a decade or so before, when she was pregnant with me, she had the same experience, at the same dark hour of the morning. When she heard whatever it was climbing the stairs, she made the mistake of calling out to it, thinking it was my father. It then stopped, but soon continued climbing. My mother said it then pushed open the partially closed bedroom door and began to pull the covers off the bed. This was enough for her. She dashed down the stairs and refused to stay in the room again. Presumably, whatever it is continues its nightly roaming, whether it has an audience or not. A few years ago I woke up and I really had to use the bathroom. My bedroom doorway is sideways to my mother's, and when I looked into her room I didn't see her in bed. We have a nightlight in the hallway, so we don't trip in the night, etc. I thought that maybe she was in the kitchen, so I walked past the living room and checked there, nothing. When I get to the kitchen I switch on the light and see nothing. I feel stupid that I didn't check the bathroom earlier and think she's probably in there, so I walk towards the bathroom and check her room once again just in case, still nothing. I get to the bathroom and come up empty again. I shrug it off as I am not completely awake and don't think much of it. The next morning I'm getting ready to leave, and I ask my mom where she was last night, and she tells me she went to bed around the time I did but never left. I ask her if she ever got up in the night and she replied no. You might be thinking I probably just missed her, but at the time we lived in a very small apartment, so I doubt I could have missed her. I'm sure there's an explanation of some kind, but I think it's creepy that I didn't see her at all. One night I was on my laptop doing some schoolwork around 3 in the morning. I was sitting in the living room on the couch when I heard the back doorknob rattling. My mind instantly thought it was an intruder, but it had not registered in my head that it was an intruder, so it went something like this: "Oh, somebody is trying to get in my house. Oh, somebody is trying to get in my house." I got up and sprinted to my room. I did not investigate. That's stupid in my opinion. I grabbed the bow and arrow that was hanging on my wall. I do archery, and I'm pretty good at it if I do say so myself, and sat on my bed with it. A couple of minutes later I got up and opened the door only to find that it was still locked and nobody had entered. I was pretty creeped out, and I went back inside my room for the night. The next night I was up late again, but I was just on my phone when I heard something that sounded like super quick footsteps at the end of my bed. Imagine when a dog gets hyper and runs around on a carpeted floor, and its nails dig into the carpet. I shut off my phone to make sure that it was not my phone making that noise. Keep in mind at 3 in the morning, lights are off, and the sun has not risen yet, so it's pitch black in my room, nothing but darkness. Then I hear that noise again, but this time it's directly next to me. I turned on my phone flashlight and looked around the room to find nothing. I have really bad anxiety, so when things like this happen or something I freeze up and sometimes go into a panic attack. I ran out of my room, and I ran to the bathroom, shut the door behind me and locked it. I stayed in there until maybe 7 or 6 in the morning, to the point the sun had risen. I did not sleep in my room for maybe a week. When I finally gained the courage to sleep in my room again, I went back in the room and FaceTimed my friend. We talked for maybe 45 minutes before the footsteps happened again. It was around 4 in the morning. I started to freak out, and my friend started trying to calm me down. She succeeded in calming me down, and I ran out of my room and asked her if she heard the footsteps too, and she said she also heard them. To this day, I have no idea what caused the footsteps and doorknob rattling, and I probably never will find out. When I was 12 to 15, I used to never sleep during the night. I didn't go to school, BC depression, so I slept during the days, so I was always wide awake by the time my dad got up to go to work. It was just a routine for us that he went into the hallway to put on his work clothes and chatted to me while I sat in the kitchen eating at 4:30 a.m. every single morning. 3 years. And one morning I was sitting and eating, and I heard him walk towards the kitchen, and right before he turned into the kitchen where I sat, I rubbed my eyes for a while because I was tired and just felt him pet my head, and I told him good morning, and I heard him hum back, which I took as a good morning back. Then I heard the laundry door open and close, the laundry room connected to the kitchen behind me. I just continued to eat. Then all of a sudden I heard someone get up from the sofa in the living room and walk to the hallway from where I sat. I saw my dad's closet clearly, where he stands to put on his clothes, and there comes my dad, almost newly awake, and starts talking to me, asking me what my plans was for the day, etc. At that point, I'm very confused, and I look toward the laundry door, then back at him, then back at the door. And as the stupid need to investigate white woman I am, I stand up and open the door. No one is there, but the laundry window is wide open, which BTW, is a very small window, may I add, so there's no way my dad could have fitted there. I stood staring at the empty room for a few minutes until my dad, who hasn't noticed I haven't listened and is busy tying his shoes, asked me why I patted his head for a while, 20 minutes ago while he half-assed slept. Still don't know how to explain that one. TLDR. Someone pet my dad's head, then mine, then climbed out our very small laundry window. This one might be able to be explained, but I'm not sure. So, my neighbors are actually part of my family, and we live in a shady neighborhood. Sometime near 3 or 2 a.m. my mother wakes up and goes outside to take a call. She suddenly notices someone standing in front of our neighbor's door. He or she twists the knob once. Locked. He or she leaves and we put it off thinking it was nothing. These next 2 stories don't take place at 2 or 5 a.m., but they tie into the previous story. I'm over at the neighbor's house, and at the time, it was my 14-year-old cousin alone and me. I don't hear it, but my cousin tells me he heard the door open. Nobody we know should be at the house right now, so we grab some baseball bats and go to investigate. The door is shut. Nobody to be seen. We look in every room. Nothing. We could just play this off as my cousin's imagination, but a week or 2 later, my cousin's sister wakes up to the sound of the door opening. Once again, nothing to be seen. Your thoughts? TL. Doctor, our neighbors keep hearing their front door open after someone in the middle of the night stood at the front door. No one had opened the door. I'm not a big believer in ghosts, but here it goes. Me and my friend decided to see if we could summon a ghost using a Ouija board at 3 a.m. Keep in mind neither of us believe in spirits or ghosts, and we both think Ouija boards are fake. We were mainly just screwing around. So we are in his dad's scary-ass basement. We are screwing around, asking dumb questions like how did you die and who killed you? Of course, no response for us. So my friend decides to turn off the lights and light a single candle. The candle was lit, but immediately, the flame just vanished. Well, burnt out. Was blown out, except, me and my friend were in front of the board, and the candle was on the top left corner. We just thought it was one of us on accident. After about 15 minutes of trying, it is now around 3:40 a.m., we gave up and went to bed on sleeping bags we had set up down there. We left on one of those electric voice phenomenon recorder things. The good ones were like $50 plus, so we just bought a dinky $15 one. Although my friend was on the other side of the basement, and he was asleep before me, when I started to doze off I felt a hand touch my shoulder, and I opened my eyes and it was daytime. I think the clock said around 7 a.m. No, it was not like a magic thing where a wizard dude taps me and poof it is day. It was weird. The best way to explain it is this: ever started to doze off subconsciously and not realize so you are awake a tiny bit but mostly asleep, and you don't even wake yourself up? It is just like your brain shouting at your body, get the fuck up, lazy ass. And you suddenly are more awake now, but you don't remember anything that happened before you started to fall asleep, and you are confused, and you don't even know how much time has passed, and sometimes more time has passed than you think without you even knowing and not being completely asleep. If you don't, just use your imagination. That's how it felt, but instead something I felt woke me up, and it looked like hours passed. There is not much help on Google, and the whole experience was just weird and defiantly hard to forget. Once, when I was younger, probably 13 or 14, I stayed up late AF on the weekend, later than I had ever stayed up before. To set the scene, the bathroom is at the end of a short hallway with one bedroom on each adjacent wall, mine and my sister's. Standing in front of the bathroom facing away from the door, you can only see part of the living room at the other end of the hall. I walked out of the bathroom and could only see the armrest of the couch in the dark. I saw a leg hanging over the armrest, kicking kind of enthusiastically, if that makes any sense. I didn't hear any noise or any indication that it may have been someone I live with. I freaked out and locked myself in my room and sent my mom a text because I was too scared to go across the house to her room. I slept with my door locked, and when my mom knocked on my door in the morning to ask me about it, I told her what happened, and she thought I was crazy. My stepdad, who was sitting in the chair I had seen the leg on the night before, told me I was probably hallucinating. As I've gotten older, I've started to believe that it might have been him, because I started to notice him in a similar position during the day, but if it had been him, why wouldn't he react to me moving around the house? Why wouldn't he react to me taking a little too long to turn off the bathroom light? Why didn't he make any noise? To make matters worse, my mother admitted to me that she had had some experiences around the house that she isn't ready to tell me about, which is not comforting. We also had the house blessed at one point because of things that were happening. It might sound stupid or fake, but I swear it's not. I can actually sense spirits' presences or whatever they are. My house is pretty full of them, including my bedroom, but they almost never gave me a negative energy. Anyways, one day I woke up like 4 or 5 a.m. and immediately sensed someone next to my wardrobe with a really bad energy, and then I asked them if they could go back another time, but only did this to get rid of them. This time I could actually see this thing like it was looking at me. Most of the time, when I can see something or someone, it never lasts long, but this time was a little different. After that, I couldn't go back to sleep, and made some sigils for protection. Sometimes when I'm not close to the sigil, I feel the same bad energy. English is not my first language, so forgive me if there's something wrong. A few weeks ago, I couldn't sleep and was lying awake at 3:21 a.m. when I heard my screen door open. It wasn't windy outside at all. There are places on the siding of the house that whistle and rattle before the wind gets strong enough to mess with the screen door. Besides, this wasn't rattling. This was the distinct, loud sound of the screen door latch being released and the door opened. The house has settled recently, and the screen door is crooked now, so it takes a fair amount of effort to unlatch it, and it's a very distinct series of sounds. Even worse, I realized I had forgotten to lock the front door at all. I'd intended to take the trash out after taking the dog out, then decided to blow it off until morning and just forgot to lock the door. So there's nothing stopping someone from just turning the handle and walking inside. I live alone, and there's nobody I know within an hour's drive of me. I would say the door was open about 30 seconds. Then, it was closed and relatched, which also requires deliberate effort and doesn't just happen if the door swings shut on its own. The whole thing appeared to be over by 3:23, but I was wide awake and tense AF after that. I tried to think of rational explanations, and the best I could come up with was that since our mail carrier often misdelivers mail between my neighbors and I, we often have to go around delivering the packages to their rightful owners. I was convinced this was the case, but when I finally got the courage to open the front door in the morning, the screen door was securely latched with no package or envelope inside. I still have no idea who that was or what was going on.